Hey, folks, it's Rob, and welcome back. We're going to continue on with the basic set by now moving into the Dungeon Master's Guide. And I'm probably not going to cover the entirety of the Dungeon Master's Guide, Dungeon Master's Rulebook, because basically there is material in here that is partly an adventure that the DM will be encouraged to use for their first adventure. And I don't really want to spoil that for those of you who are new to the game. Um, what I'm gonna do is we're just gonna kind of roll through this in in what I think outside of that adventure, the material we have, and this is really for those of you who are interested or nostalgic. If you are a genuine new player, I believe the preface will tell us all about that. But basically, your focus is here, right? And you can see these are very similar, but it says read this book first. And really, this is what you need to get started. And you will need a DM. And honestly, it's good that players become DMs. It's good to share that responsibility with your fellow players because DMs want to play too. Um, so it's great when people are DMs, but as it will say in here, this you lose something of the specialness as a player when you know all the stuff that's in the background. And so let's crack her open. First off, we have this nice map key, and it's a standardized symbols that you will generally find inside TSR modules, and possibly not an entirety list, but a good a starting set. And uh, I recommend using it if you're going to draw up your own maps, even if you're just there just for your own personal use. Because, hey, maybe you want to share them someday, or maybe you want to reuse them, or maybe you will even want to someday publish them or share in that way. But, you know, having a standard key is very useful in the sense of like it's consistent, right? And it makes that's what partly what makes maps readable is that they are consistent. Um, but you will want to mess around with things, especially for handouts, to just kind of like make things that look like what somebody scribbled or drew, or you know, as it fits into your world. We'll start with the preface here. As you can see, 1983. Uh, revised by Frank Benser, illustrations by Larry Elmore, Jim Holloway, and Jeff Easley, who all do top tier work in my opinion. If you like their art, go ahead and find some. They're still out there. You can still buy this stuff. But prints, admittedly, unless you're really well to do, in which case, hey, go crazy, get yourself an original. Um, Not all of it is in the TSR vaults, or now Wizards of the Coast, as the case may be, or Hasbro. So I will start with the preface. So this booklet will show you how to run a Dungeons and Dragons game. It will not show you how to play the game. You may play a Dungeons and Dragons game either by yourself or with others. If you want to play alone, use the solo adventure in the player's manual. If you want to play a game with others, one person must first learn how to be the dungeon master, the person who runs the game, and the others will be the players. You must know how to be a player before learning how to be a dungeon master. For now, if you only wish to play and do not run games, then do not read this booklet. This booklet contains information for the Dungeon Master. You will have less fun playing if you learn the information ahead of time. A big part of the game is the mystery and excitement that comes from not knowing all the answers. Later, when you're an experienced player, you may wish to look up some details or even become a dungeon master yourself, and when the time comes, everything you need is right here. If you have not read the player's manual, you will probably not understand most of this booklet, but you have played this but if you have played the solo adventure, finished reading the text of the player's manual, and want to become a dungeon master, then welcome. This book is for you, kids. Now, I will say, this is actually the slider book of the pair. This one here is 64 pages plus the cover. This one here, 48 pages plus the cover. That's how we've weighted this set, and it's not untypical for the books to be disparate in this way in the box sets, but I mean, always there's the odd one standing out, the expert set, which is the one booklet. But really, this book is a continuation of the education of the game, and there is something to be said for not knowing all the answers when you start out playing. With Like I said, it's important that players become dungeon masters and not just one person be the dungeon master. But at the same time, not knowing how the sausage is made, as it were, or what all those details are of all the monsters, really does help and add to the magic of your first games. So, you know, if again, if you're new to Dungeons and Dragons Red Box or Basic and you want to be playing with a group, maybe don't this video isn't for you right now. Maybe this is for you in the future. This is your last warning. So, introduction. Got a little, yeah, classic DM artwork here. Um, Read through this booklet from front to back, just as you did the player's manual. A vast wealth of information awaits you. In your adventures so far, you have met many fearsome monsters goblins, skeletons, even a rust monster. There are dozens of other monsters described in this booklet. You have found treasures, coins of all types, gems, and magical potion. There are dozens of other treasures here. You have visited a dungeon, some caves near a town. There's a new dungeon in this booklet. You will also learn how to put all these things together, make your own dungeons, run games for other players, and probably have more fun than you ever imagined. Terms and abbreviations. Let's review the most commonly used terms in the game. These will often be used in this booklet. A character being run by a player is simply called a player character, or PC. The D&D games you will run are actually stories about the PCs in a fantasy world, and you and your players will make up those stories together. You will play the roles of the non-player characters, NPCs, and monsters. Basically, you're everything that the player characters aren't. Take a moment to review these terms and abbreviations and become familiar with them. So, definitions. Character. Any imaginary person, human, dwarf, elf, or halfling in a D&D game. That could be Trader Bob at the trading post. It could be that half elf that's lying in the gutter over there. It could just in a drunken stupor. No, I mean, half elves aren't really a thing in Dungeons and Dragons. Basic, but you know what I mean. Basically, all the characters are everybody out there. Uh, Essentially, the sapients, I will call them, are the characters. Player, a person who plays the role of a character in a D&D game. So that's your players. You know, the other people, your friends who are joining you for the game who aren't the dungeon master. Adventurer, any character which seeks adventure, daring to face monsters and dangers in search of fame and fortune. And that's what distinguishes your player characters from, say, like, Bob the farmer, right? Uh, you have the spark of adventure in your character and are going out to seek some treasure, adventure, um, experiences, seek to undo a wrong, seek to make wrong. Whatever it is that drives you to adventure, it makes you an adventurer. And it's what makes the player characters different from everybody, from most other characters in the game. Now, there may be other NPC parties. There may be, there will be nobles who may be retired adventurers, or even just more common folk who are retired adventurers. for various reasons. Some more successful than others, obviously. But your player characters are the people who have that spark in your world and are currently acting upon them. And while there may be other people in this world who have that similar spark and are acting upon them, they are all the world of the DM because they are NPCs. Your player characters, however, will definitely be adventurers. There's no innkeeper class, right? You're going out and adventuring. Class, the profession of an adventurer. So that's like fighter, cleric, magic user, thief. And then, of course, like there is race as class in this game. So elves, halflings, and dwarves technically are classes as well as races, right? Party, a group of adventurers gathered to share their talents for the good of all. So there's a fundamental assumption in this edition that you're going to be good people. And I'm not put off by that. I think that's actually sweet and not a bad place to start. And honestly, I prefer playing good people because I'd rather be heroic in my games. But not everybody plays the game that way, right? So I will say that to modify that definition, a group of adventurers gathered together to share their talents for the good of all can be interpreted as for the mutual benefit of each other, whether that be in a more mercurial way uh, or because they are keeping an eye on each other while also trying to find methods of motivating themselves to do things in their own mutual interest. You could say, depending on their alignment, right? But the assumption is that you're going to be playing good characters, and so this is for the good of all. Monster, any creature that is not a character. So, a little loose, because there are non player characters, right? There who are not monsters. But generally, you're going to encounter monsters, and monsters can be sapient, they can be entire races, but they will generally not be of the host civilization that your characters are a part of, and will generally be considered at least neutral, if not hostile. Normal man is a typical town person who is not an adventurer. So, for example, again, by this very broad definition, a normal man is a monster. And actually, I believe there is a monster entry for normal man in here. Um, but a normal man is functionally a non-player character who is just something that the DM may not have fleshed out much, right? If it's just the guy walking down the street, who's stepping over the drunkard in the gutter, he hasn't fleshed that character out probably, and it's just somebody. But normal man also applies to, say, like merchants, caravaneers, guards, all the people in town who aren't of particular classes. Um, they aren't fighters. They aren't anything. They're just humans. Treasure, any valuable item, usually a coin, gem, piece of jewelry, or magic item. Yeah, it's what motivates the adventurers in a lot of ways, especially since you get XP from treasure. Uh, treasure can also be more broadly thought of, basically, functionally, as anything valuable to either the players or to someone that they know. Right? If they find, I have used as a motivation actually a mission to go and recover things, say spell components that somebody needs for a special spell, because there's not really spell components generally in this game. Uh, but I had them go gather dragon beetle shells, um, and like glands from the dragon beetles, and they were paid in compensation for the bits they brought back, and in addition for just simply exterminating the nest, which was considered a nuisance. And you know, all those shells, all those glands that they took care to bring back, those were additionally treasure, if you follow. Dungeon. Any place where monsters and treasures can be found, including caves, old ruins, and so forth. So, I mean, that's again a very loose definition of dungeon as opposed to just simply being something underground. But quite often, those places are places where adventures are had. And I guess that's what they mean. Dungeon Master. A person who runs a D&D game playing the roles of the monsters and non-player characters, I would say. That's basically the purpose of this book. So you become the dungeon master, and it's going to be your world. Uh, but sometimes it's your player character's world, and you're just making it all happen. You're going to need to figure out your own style of this, but players generally don't care for being railroaded, but good players also like to appreciate that the DM put in a fair bit of work to make the adventure happen, and maybe we should bite the hook that leads us to the adventure instead of just going to the tavern and then going up the hill and ransacking the Lord's castle, right? Um, maybe when the guy has a special job at the tavern who's talking about save my son, maybe that's your adventure hook, and maybe you should go and approach that guy, right? Just saying. Being willfully not into the story, I'm not sure why you're at the game. Non-player character. Any character that is run by the Dungeon Master instead of a player. Level. A number indicating the power of an adventure or spell. Alignment. A term generally describing the behavior of any creature. That'd be lawful, neutral, or chaotic. Now remember, non-intelligent animals tend to be neutral, right? They may be hostile, and they'll have their own reasons for being hostile, but they'll be instinctual, right? They're neutral. They are only acting in their own self-interest at any point. They, while lawful in this game, in this version, is generally considered to be the side of good, while chaotic is the side of evil. And there's a wider interpretation of that in definitely other versions of Dungeons and Dragons and other games. And I am open to that interpretation. And honestly, I do see chaotic good versus lawful evil is definitely a diametric. But lawful evil being the typical alignment of, say, for example, slavers, while chaotic good being kind of more like the noble barbarian, right? Uh, or even just some kind of weird libertarian, right? But the game here is simplified in its approach to the alignment, and that's fine. That is fine. Saving throw. A creature's chance to save itself from special attack via that magic, poison, etc. We kind of covered that in the player area. Abbreviations. PC, player character. NPC, non-player character, run by the Dungeon Master. DM, Dungeon Master. I suppose the codicil here about run by a Dungeon Master is that non-player characters could also be retainers, which will generally be run by the player, right? Or additional characters played by the player if you're doubling up or something like that. DM, Dungeon Master. STR is, of course, strength. INT is intelligence. WIS is wisdom. DEX is dexterity. CON is constitution. CHA is charisma. NA, number appearing, not available or not appearing. That is number appearing, right? AC, armor class. HD, hit dice. HP, usually small, hit points. D, type of dice. So that's the D6, the D8, the D10. That's describing the type of die you need to roll. Big D, damage. MV, movement speed. Hashtag or pound sign, or however you want to call that nowadays. AT, that's number of attacks. Save. saving throw class and level. So a monster will save as, for example, a 4th level fighter. C for cleric, M for magic user, F for fighter, T for thief, D for dwarf, E for elf, H for halfling, N for normal man, ML stands for morale, AL alignment, XP for experience points, and then finally into our fiduciaries here. Copper pieces is CP, SP is silver pieces, EP is electrum pieces, GP is gold pieces, and get ready for that laugh again, PP platinum pieces. I know you're slightly amused. PP. All right, all good? Okay. Hey, I won't turn down some platinum. I'm happy to bring it home. Most important rule. There is one rule which applies to everything you will do as a dungeon master. It is the most important of all the rules. It is simply this: be fair. And I have to I would underline it, but I'm not writing in this book. Be fair. It's very important. A dungeon master must not take sides. You will play the roles of the characters encountered, but do so fairly without favoring the monsters or the characters. Play the monsters as they would actually behave, at least as you imagine them. The players are not fighting the DM. The characters may be fighting the monsters, but everyone is playing the game to have fun. The players have fun exploring and earning more powerful characters, and the DM has fun playing the monsters and entertaining players. For example, it is not fair to change the rules unless everyone agrees to the change. When you add optional rules, apply them evenly to everyone, players and monsters. Do not make exceptions, stick to the rules, and be fair. So, as a popular YouTuber will call this, is the Skeleton King, where basically it becomes a kind of an I say so from a tale he told once upon a time. And this bad DM basically just, caused like more monsters to just magically appear and just went off the sheet of just like the Skeleton King to made this fearsome encounter far more powerful than it originally was intended to be. Be fair to the players. If you've written out an encounter, if you have one in front of you, and the dice are not going your way, then that's just how it is. And if the players are having a bad time, you're having a bad time. At least I expect so. Why do you want to give your friends a bad time? Now, I'm not saying cheat on their behalf either. Be fair, right? It's a game. If you're just going to just do whatever you want, why have rules? Why roll dice, right? What is the point of just being here playing what is nominally a game if you're not going to abide by the rules or the rolls for the dice that you roll? Now, I will say, sometimes there's a bit of theater involved in being a DM, and not necessarily telling everybody everything all the time that is true. I will randomly roll dice for no reason behind a screen, because sometimes I want to put them a little on edge, and they're like, why is he rolling dice? Maybe sometimes I'm rolling dice because I have a reason, and it is not to be clear to the players at the time. For example, if I'm searching for seeing if they hit a trap or hit a random encounter, and they don't need to know when I am legitimately rolling the dice and when I am not. That is not being unfair. That is creating suspense and mystery. At least in my opinion. Maybe you differ on that. But I will say that by and large, right, don't change the rules. Don't vary from the page. Play the game fairly with your players. And, there's currently a little thing going around on the internet of like, hey, roll the dice in front of the screen, see how that goes. Admittedly, I can't go and keep secret rolls secret if I'm rolling in front of the players. I mean, I guess I could roll the dice and they can see what happens, and I just don't tell them. But there's definitely a time for dice rolls to be secret and a time for dice rolls that can be public. I am perfectly fine with rolling combat encounters largely in front of the players, right? Um, but like if I'm checking for a random encounter, or if I'm, you know, just like checking the encounter table, right? Okay, they don't need to know what I rolled. Maybe the game, I forget whether the book gets into this further. And I'm certainly making a big tangent right here. So I'm going to carry on. Because otherwise, I'm never going to get through this book in about 15 parts like the first one. and, and that is not my intention. So, the Dungeon Master's Job. A Dungeons and Dragons game is basically a series of encounters with other actions, such as movement and problem solving between them. The dice are often used to find the results when choices must be made. All the dice rolls are called game mechanics. The game consists mostly of role-playing, game mechanics, and strategy. During an encounter, the players make the hit rolls, damage rolls, and other saving throws for their characters. You, the Dungeon Master, make similar rolls for the monsters, plus other rolls to find the monster's actions, such as reactions to the morale. The DM's roles. You will play the roles of all the monsters, townspeople, and all the creatures encountered. The best dungeon masters are able to play several roles at once, such as when the characters meet another party of adventurers, all played by the DM. However, your creatures are not as detailed as the PCs and are easier to play. Their actions are often determined by dice rolls. One rule applies to all the creatures, even though there are many different types. Imagine how the creature feels. The actions of a creature are often determined by its alignment or intelligence. For example, an animal is not very smart and will try to act simply, hungry and hostile, neutral and unconcerned, or friendly. Most and more intelligent creatures may be thinking of many different things: food, treasure, home, and friends, and so forth. When an encounter seems likely, think about how the creatures feel and how they might react. When the encounter begins, you will often roll dice to find the actual reactions of the creatures. These results should be adjusted for the creature's intelligence, habits, and other details. Imagine how your creatures will react to these dangerous, greedy characters stomping around their caves. The monsters will try to survive and be happy in their own ways, and will often fight to defend their homes and treasures. But remember, although the monsters may be fighting the characters, you are not fighting the players. If you try to entertain them, they will entertain you. Play the roles of the monsters, but forget them when they are slain. Their only purpose, in the long run, is entertainment. Reactions. When an encounter begins, you may find the actions of the players by making reaction rolls. Results are a guide to playing the monster's response to the arrival of the characters. An encountered creature might attack automatically. The ghouls in your first adventure, for example, will always attack anyone entering their area because the description of this monster says so. Most monsters do not always attack, so be sure to read the descriptions carefully. Many creatures may be friendly or unfriendly, depending on the situation. Their reactions can sometimes be determined by the actions of the characters. If a fighter has a sword out and charges at a goblin, the goblin is not going to think the fighter is friendly. The goblin might attack and might run away, but probably won't try to talk. That's not unreasonable. If they're like, and you're like, whoa, how would you respond to someone coming at you with a knife? Right? You ain't probably going to try to talk them down immediately. You're going to probably respond in some other way. More often, however, the characters will wait and see what the monsters do before they start anything. That's optimistic, but sometimes player characters will be like that. Um, but see what the monsters do. Yeah, I mean, if you get the drop on them, sure, they might actually do that. Likewise, most monsters will usually wait to see how the characters act. You can do things that way. When this type of encounter begins, you should make a reaction roll for the monsters using 2d6. I had 2d6 out here earlier, for example. Up to 3 reaction rolls may be needed to finish the encounter. Whenever the characters attack the monsters, stop rolling for reactions. The monsters will fight to defend themselves and might run away depending on their morale score, as explained on page 14, which we will get to. We're only on page 3 right now. Reaction rolls are explained in detail on pages 22 to 23. Read that section before your first group game. And yeah, that's going to be a while to get to as well. Honestly, I think we're going to be finishing this video, and then that's going to be it. But running the game. During the most of a D&D game, the Dungeon Master leaves the decisions to the players. The DM presents the setting, describing what the characters see, offering choices of actions, and so forth. But the course of the game is determined by the actions of the party as decided by all the players. The DM can almost relax and enjoy the characters' progress as they explore, make maps, solve puzzles, and so forth. The DM usually deals with the characters as a group, rather than as individuals. However, when an encounter begins, a change occurs. The DM takes a more active role, becoming more aware of the actions of each character. The players have a more limited choice of actions as they confront a monster or NPC. The DM plays the roles of each of the creatures encountered and decides their actions while considering those of the characters. Game time passes in slow motion as the DM carefully considers the round-by-round actions, 10 seconds at a time, and announces the results. An experienced Dungeon Master can play the roles of several monsters at once. It can be very hard to do this fairly without favoring the monsters or the characters, just as players should keep player knowledge and character knowledge separate. So should the DM keep the monster knowledge completely separated from the DM information. This challenging task is further complicated by the need to keep the game running smoothly at the same time. The following checklists can be used to make sure that everything is handled smoothly during normal play. Order of events in a game turn. During an encounter, order of events in an encounter, and during an encounter that results in combat, order of events in combat. You may concentrate on the roles of the monsters using those lists as reminders of the necessary game mechanics. So, order of events in an encounter. 1. Number appearing, determined by the DM from page 22. So, various monsters have, if this is not already a set encounter, where you know how many monsters are present, but more like a random encounter, for example, you may need to roll dice to determine the number appearing, or determine from an entry how many monsters are typically found. 2. Surprise. The DM rolls 1d6 for each side, monsters and party, page 58 of the Player's Manual. Remember? So 3 and 3, okay, tied. Reactions. DM rolls 2d6 for the monster's first reactions, referencing page 22. And again, you roll 2d6, and generally the higher, the friendlier. 9, okay. Let's see. Results. If both sides talk, continue reaction rolls, negotiation, etc. as needed. B. One side runs away. The DM handles evasion and pursuit, from page 16. C. One side attacks, continue with the order of events in combat. This one right here. So here we have order of events in a game turn. So 1, wandering monsters. DM rolls 1d6, normally checked every 2 turns, And basically, you're typically looking for a 1 for an encounter. Right, there's a 2. and a 6, and a 2. See, like this, you're randomly rolling dice for various reasons as a DM. And sometimes it's very kind of like maybe you want to hide that. My opinion. 2. Actions. Caller describes all party actions, movement, listening, searching, etc. And again, that's that caller concept from the player's manual. Sometimes different people will take charge, and sometimes people will naturally take charge in a group, and that's fine. Really, as long as everybody's comfortable and happy with how things are proceeding, that they feel like they're being heard or participating at a level that they think is fair and that they want to do, that's great. Sometimes you'll get conflict between people wanting to be in charge, in which case one should be the caller, and maybe they can rotate that role. Results. If A, a new area is mapped, the DM describes it, like a new room, right? B, an encounter occurs, skip to order of events in encounter. C, something is discovered, such as a secret door, an item, the DM announces the results, right? So, like that magic mouth puzzle in the solo adventure. D, no encounter occurs, the game turn ends, return to 1, right? Now, order of events in combat. 1. Intentions. DM asks each player what their character intends to do in the coming round. So, are you closing to engage with the goblin? Are you running away? Are you trying to sneak through the shadows? What is are you preparing a spell? What is your character doing, right? 2, initiative. Each side rolls 1d6. The side that wins the initiative for acts first. So, again, you got your d6s. Got a 4, I got a 1. This one's first, right? Simple and straightforward. If it's equal, 5 and 5, hey, lucky me, I didn't even I didn't do any editing. I don't edit these videos at all. They are one and done. If I make a flub in the beginning, I restart. Otherwise, right now I'm a no edit person. But I got a pair of 5s, so simultaneous in that case, right? So that was initiative. Actions is number 3. Side that wins initiative. So A, morale check if needed. That's going to be on the monster side. Or retainers for the characters. B, movement and optional combat movement. Page 56 of the player's manual. C, missile fire. Page 59 of the player's manual. And again, that was an optional rule as well, technically. Magic spells and magic items used, such as wands. So, like, the magic user goes and casts a spell. Bloop. And then E, hand-to-hand combat. So, when, remember in the solo encounter, and Bargle goes and casts a spell on Alina, and Alina's running up to him to go and smash him in the face with her mace? That's because spells happen before hand-to-hand melee attacks. But missile fire happens before spells. Had this been a more full version of the rules and you had the option to use, say, like a bow or, bow's kind of unrealistic in the dungeon, but a sling, to go and crack Bargle in the head with a sling bullet, you might have saved Alina. Who knows? 4. Actions. Side losing initiative follows steps A through E above. So, you then proceed through this entire list again for the side that lost initiative. And then 5, results. If A, all the monsters are defeated, the combat and game turn ends. Return turn order to order of events in a game turn. B, one side runs away, the other may pursue, and the fleeing side may attempt to evade. See page 16. And then C, the combat continues. Return to the first step in the order of events in combat and repeat all the steps. So, rinse and repeat until you're done, right? considering I've been reading for 40 minutes already, and this is moving into your first game, I think we'll stop here, and I'll rejoin you next time. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Since we're starting a new section, if you like this, please like the video. I encourage you to subscribe if you like to see more of these. These will go into the D&D playlist. But, you know, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video or even just listen to me ramble on about something I'm very nostalgic about and somewhat passionate about. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.